Let's dive right into this explainer, because today we're tackling a paradox that absolutely broke my brain when I first read about it. We all use models to understand the world, right? From the basic laws of physics we learned back in high school to the deeply ingrained psychological scripts we use to navigate our everyday relationships. But there is a glaring contradiction sitting right at the foundational baseline of human knowledge. And today, we're going to look right at it. We really want to understand exactly what we covered in our core discussion. Why do our models of reality look so amazingly efficient, even if the true nature of reality is amazingly complex and entirely interconnected?
So, here is the massive question. If reality is infinitely complex, why do simple models work? Really think about that for a second. How can a basic physical equation flawlessly predict the exact behavior of a falling apple or an orbiting planet when the universe itself is actually this endless, centerless web of billions of interconnected causes and conditions? I mean, every single atom is constantly influenced by the gravity of every other atom in existence. So how do a few simple numbers on a chalkboard suddenly tame all of that cosmic chaos? It almost feels like magic, doesn't it? We're going to peel back the layers of this mystery. On one hand, you have the unimaginable complexity of reality itself, an endless fractal web of dependent origination, where absolutely everything is constantly moving, changing, and influencing everything else. It's a completely seamless whole. But then, on the other hand, we have these simple, rigid mathematical models we use every single day to make sense of it all. The gulf between these two realities is just massive. So how do we cross that bridge? How do we map the infinite with something so remarkably simple?
Section 1. The brain's biological glitch.
To solve this paradox, we actually have to travel back in time and look inside the prehistoric hardware of our own minds. Our cognitive operating system wasn't built by a bunch of theoretical physicists seeking some grand objective cosmic truth. Not at all. It was built by evolutionary demands for survival. For our prehistoric ancestors, trying to continuously process the ultimate interconnected tapestry of existence would have been an incredible liability. So our brains developed this biological glitch called edge detection. We learned to instantly draw hard artificial boundaries in our vision just to separate a predator from the tall grass.
And this brilliantly illustrates how our brains physically process the world to survive. We literally edit out the continuous blur of reality, we isolate the threat like a tiger, and we draw a hard, absolute boundary around it. We take a continuous, seamless universe and arbitrarily slice it into actionable, discrete pieces. And there's a very good reason for this. Because, if our ancestors stood there appreciating the infinite, interconnected, cosmic tapestry of a tiger's beautiful fur, they would have been eaten immediately. Evolution didn't care about objective reality. It cared about keeping us alive long enough to pass on our genes. It's a brilliant survival hack, sure, but it fundamentally distorts what reality actually is. Centuries ago, the philosopher Nagarjuna actually diagnosed this cognitive habit. He called it the disease of reification. Basically, that means we take a fluid, dynamic, interdependent process and mentally freeze it into a solid, independent block. Imagine standing next to a raging river. You can't walk on water, so your brain essentially takes the flowing river of reality and freezes it into static, heavy blocks of ice. It does this just so you can have some solid ground to stand on and actually navigate your environment.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that this ancient survival glitch forces us to aggressively chop up a unified universe into simplistic artificial triads. We constantly, habitually divide the world into an actor, an action, and a result, or a perceiver, the act of perceiving and the perceived object. We force a beautifully flowing universe into these rigid, artificial conceptual boxes simply because it makes the terrifying unknown of the world feel predictable. It gives us a sense of control.
And because of this cognitive architecture, we hallucinate absolute core entities that don't actually exist. There's this incredible quote from the text that absolutely floored me. We are living our lives as verbs violently masquerading as nouns. Everything in the entire universe is a dynamic, relational process. It's a verb, constantly unfolding. But our biological hardware forces us to see static, independent objects. We're trapped in a world of nouns that we entirely invented.
Section 2. The Lego brick fallacy.
Now, transitioning directly from prehistoric biology into modern scientific methodology, we arrive at the Lego brick fallacy. Modern science operates almost entirely under this exact fallacy. Because our brains naturally reify the world, we just assume reality is a giant bucket of isolated cosmic Lego bricks that temporarily snap together to create events. We think an actor is a solid red brick, the action is a blue brick, and the result is a yellow brick. This assumption gives us phenomenally accurate predictive maps of the world, but it is built entirely on the delusion that parts possess fixed, independent essences prior to their connection.
Section 3. Mapping interactions, not reality.
Okay, so if reality isn't made of independent Lego bricks, what exactly are our equations describing? And why do our models look so amazingly efficient despite reality being infinitely complex? To answer that, we need to introduce samvriti, or conventional truth. This literally translates to concealing or covering. And guys, this is the absolute secret to the whole paradox. Think about high school physics. You calculate the trajectory of a thrown baseball by explicitly ignoring air resistance, ignoring the gravitational pull of Jupiter, and ignoring the microscopic temperature changes in the air molecules. Our models achieve their incredible operational efficiency precisely because they conceal. They intentionally isolate a tiny, manageable handful of variables and actively ignore the limitless, interconnected web of the rest of the universe. The efficiency of our models is an illusion born entirely of omission.
Therefore, a scientific law is just a highly effective operational map of our localized interaction with reality. It is not an ontological mirror reflecting the absolute truth of the universe. The mathematical model doesn't somehow overcome or solve the infinite complexity of the cosmos. It just perfectly codifies the specific, relative slice of the interaction we are currently experiencing. We're mapping our own footprint in the sand, not the ocean itself.
Now, I know what you might be thinking, but hey, science is real. The physical world is real. And yeah, absolutely. If you sprint face first into a brick wall, the physics of kinetic energy work perfectly, and your resulting broken nose is going to hurt a lot. It is highly functional. But the crucial takeaway is that this is a localized, conventional truth. The pain is very real, the physical interaction is very real, but the absolute independent wallness we project onto those vibrating atoms, that is the illusion.
And even advanced physics is starting to explicitly agree with this deeply philosophical concept. Look at relational quantum mechanics. In this framework, an electron is completely unfindable between interactions. It literally doesn't have a definite position or velocity on its own. This means properties only exist in the relationship, kind of like a handshake. A handshake simply doesn't exist independently of two hands meeting. It's an event, not an object. You can't transmute a relational event into an absolute substance no matter how hard you try.
Section 4. The echo in the canyon.
So we peeled back the biology and the physics, bringing us to a really profound ultimate truth about our phenomenal world. The correspondence between our math and our reality seems magical, like we've somehow unlocked the objective baseline secrets of the universe. But it's actually just an infinite karmic feedback loop. Think of it like an Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. The model and the modeler are constantly co-creating each other. The observer and the observed co-evolve and update each other at every single infinitesimal fraction of a millisecond. This means our modeled reality functions exactly like an echo in a canyon. Conventionally, the echo has real, measurable physical power. It hits you. It vibrates eardrums. It startles birds out of the trees. It is functionally effective and incredibly real in the relative world we occupy.
Yet, if you try to reach out and grab the absolute independent core of that echo, what happens? You catch nothing but empty air. Why? Because the echo doesn't exist independently anywhere. It's an interdependent event entirely co-created by a vast web of vocal cords, the exact density of the air, and the specific geometry of the canyon rock. Our models of reality work exactly the same way. They're practically useful, functionally effective, but ultimately empty of any absolute, standalone essence.
So where does this realization leave us? Does this just destroy science or the pursuit of knowledge? No way. Actually, it liberates us. It invites us into what Madhyamaka philosophy calls the middle way. We can fiercely utilize these models as provisional tools. We can confidently use mathematical equations to engineer microchips, launch satellites, and build massive bridges, completely without being crushed by the dogmatic delusion that they represent ultimate base reality. It's the profound practice of acting without acting, using the tool while knowing for sure it's just a tool.
We've covered some incredible ground today in this explainer. From our evolutionary edge detection to the Lego brick fallacy, right down to the unfindable electron. So, I want to leave you with a final thought to take into your everyday life. Knowing your models are just a highly functional mirage born of omission, how are you going to navigate your maps moving forward? When you go to work tomorrow, or when you get into a heated argument with a friend, will you fiercely engage with the world while remembering to leave the raft behind once you cross the river? Or will you keep mistaking your mental map for the actual territory? Think on that. Thanks for learning with us today.